Hi, my name is Phil Davenport. I'm the owner of Affirm IT Services Limited. Our contact details should be just below this video. I'm going to talk about, firstly, how your password can be stolen without you even knowing it. And secondly, how can we set a secure password to try and make it as hard as we can do for anybody to get hold of it. So I'm going to give you a little teaser, and that is we've got two passwords written out here. The first one is dead easy to remember. The second one is slightly harder. So the first one is quotation mark, capital L, lowercase ILABOC, quotation mark, full stop, capital F, capital G, hashtag 1994. The second one, quotation mark, capital I, lowercase YARNWTL, comma, lowercase NOCHY, full stop, capital I, lowercase YADTL, comma, NOCSY, quotation mark, full stop, capital Z, at symbol 2020. So my challenge for the end of this is to get you to at least be able to remember the first one of those, hopefully both of them, but let's see how we get on. So how are your passwords stolen without your knowledge? Well, let me take you back to one of the most notorious thefts of passwords when a site called RockYou, which was an application developer, was breached in 2009. They stored all of their passwords in clear text. So 32 million user details were leaked. They got a $250,000 fine for this, I think, as well as some other bits and bobs. But 32 million usernames and passwords were leaked in clear text. And what people found was a lot of those passwords were exactly the same. I've got a few of the words for you here. So, princess, 12345678, RockYou, 12345678, Nicole, Daniel, baby girl, and monkey. So from these 32 million, a text file was created with 14 million of those common passwords in it. And what happened was whenever somebody would try and crack a password, they would use this text file with the 14 million known passwords. So how do they crack a password? Well, firstly, if a site's using weak encryption, what that site does is it takes the original password, so let's say it's princess, it will put it through a known encryption method, and it will come out with a load of jumble, so hashtags, question marks, or whatever. What the hacker will do is they'll take their known list of words, so for example, princess, they'll put it through the same encryption, and they too will come out with a jumbled version, and they'll compare their jumbled version with the one that's been leaked from the website. If the two jumbled versions match, they know that they've cracked the password. So you can imagine, or at least I'm hoping, a lot of you can imagine we're not using passwords like princess, and potentially some of you may be using passwords like Nicole, Daniel, but with clever little changes to them. So this is the second thing that hackers do. After they've run through the list of known passwords, they'll start to insert rules. So they might change the vowels. So for example, in princess, they might do capital PR1, NC3, SS. So changing the vowels for numbers. They'll start to put numbers on the end of the word, and they'll start to put two words together, and then a couple of numbers at the end of that. Remember, these guys have got very powerful computers and often what we call botnets. So they've got a lot of computing power. So they can really throw through a huge amount of passwords and test whether those hashes match the hashes that they've got from the database. At this point in time, of course, you're unaware of the password breach. The second thing that I think made this really clever, if I'm truthful, and one thing I didn't expect, is they're not trying to attack your password on the site. Because if they try to do that, most sites will lock it out after 3 attempts. Okay? So that's how they're trying to breach your password. And that's why it's important that we have a really clever, really strong password that isn't going to be breached easily by these password attacks. Okay? So the two passwords we've got here, the first one is one of my favourites. You will hopefully get this when I start talking like this. And this password is, and it's a quote, so I've put quote marks at the start and the end. And the quote is, "Life is like a box of chocolates." Okay, so capital L for life, then lowercase ILABOC for is like a box of chocolates. I then end the quote marks and I put a full stop in. And of course, who said that? None other than Forrest Gump, capital F, capital G. Then a hashtag and the year the movie came out, which is 1994. So life is like a box of chocolates, Forrest Gump, 1994. That's why I say, hopefully, you'll now be able to remember that one. Life is like a box of chocolates. It's a quote. We've got a capital L at the start of it, and we've chucked a full stop at the end of it. Forrest Gump was the author of that quote, capital F, capital G. You might go with Tom Hanks, TH. Hashtag and 1994 for the year the movie came out. Again, you might change that for the year you watched the movie. I don't want you to use this password. Please find your own movie quote, your own actor. You know, you might go with the actor, you might go with the character, and whichever date you fancy. The second one's trickier. It's one that I found online today and I really like it. Again, it's a quote, so I've put quote marks at the start and the finish. And again, I've put a full stop before the author. So this one, if you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. That was Zig Ziglar, and I found the quote in 2020. So again, you've got, if you are not willing to learn, and then a comma, because we like our punctuation and our Grammarly, no one can help you, full stop. If you are determined to learn, comma, no one can stop you. And that's Zig Ziglar 2020. So there's two passwords there. I'd like you to go out and find a phrase, or, you know, I like the Zig Ziglar one because it's a bit of an affirmation, it's positive. So every time you type in your password, you'll be thinking, if you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you're determined to learn, no one can stop you. It gets the start to the day really positive. There's probably 4 or 5 more tricks that I would like us to incorporate in our password policy, but I want this to be a short video, and hopefully you've picked up some tips and you've realised a little bit more about why we need to have secure passwords. If you'd like to get in touch, there's the contact form underneath this video, and we've also got an additional service where we can run a search against your domain to look for passwords that have already been leaked onto the dark web. It's totally unintrusive, and it's just searching the dark web to see if we can find any of your passwords out there, because if we can, it's definitely time to change them. So the contact form is underneath. Alternatively, give me a ring on 0115 753 0123, or drop me a direct message on here. So I'm Phil Davenport, and it's from Affirm IT Services Limited. Thank you for your time.